Welcome back to Westeros, my good ladies and sirs, and I am your 2-bit maester, and I have 9 things I want to talk about from the pilot of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms that do not include Dunk spraying ass like an aggroed skunk. Let's go. Welcome to 209 AC Westeros, where we're about 80 years removed from the Dance of the Dragons, about 13 years past the first Blackfyre rebellion, 12 years after Dorne's bent their knees, and about 90 years before the events of A Game of Thrones. Okay, so typically in a Thrones show, we're bouncing all over the realm from castle to castle, across the narrow sea, but that is not the case for A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, where we will primarily be in one location for these 6 episodes. Ashford is the seat and castle for House Ashford, and it's located in the Reach. It's just northwest of the Dornish Marches, where you would see the likes of House Dondarrion and House Caron that will have roles to play in this show. The liege lord for House Ashford is House Tyrell of Highgarden. All right, well, it wouldn't be a throne show if we didn't talk about how faithful the adaptation was, especially now with George circling the HBO studios like Danny in the Bells ready to breathe fire down on Ryan Condal. But hey, can you blame the man considering the liberties D&D took down the stretch with Game of Thrones or what Condal did at times in season 2 of House of the Dragon? I cannot. But so far, George R.R. Martin and Ira Parker are still in the honeymoon phase of their relationship, so we should be good here for season 1 of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, despite George not being a big fan there of the poop scene. Now that we've got that bowl of brown sucked down and shat out, let's finally talk about the show. Pretty much right from the jump, we hear a number of lines straight from the Hedge Knight as Dunk unknowingly meets the future Aegon V. Whether it's the opening scene with Dunk burying and lamenting Sir Arlen, his first conversation with Egg, his huge order at the local inn, or his parting conversation with Egg, there's more quotes from the text than you can spray a shit at. The only notable thing in this episode that isn't from the source material is the scene at Lionel's Pavilion, but we'll get into that later. All right, we got 2 Targaryens in this first episode with many more to come. First off, and most importantly, we have Egg, aka Prince Aegon Targaryen, who goes on to be Aegon V, as I'd mentioned earlier, and will be known as Aegon the Unlikely due to being the 4th son of a 4th son, with his ascension to the Iron Throne appearing damn near impossible. The other Targaryen we saw in this episode was Daemon Targaryen, Aegg's oldest brother. He's the angry drunk dude in the tavern that yells about his dream to Dunk. Now, Daemon lacks the traditional Targaryen silver hair, which is why he still has a head of lettuce and Aegg doesn't. Where he lacks strength and intelligence, he does make up for in prophetic dreams. Daemon has that same ability to see future events that involve House Targaryen, like Daenerys the Dreamer, Aegon the Conqueror, and Helena Targaryen, as we have just seen most recently in House of the Dragon. Daeron and Aegg's father is Prince Maekar, and their mother was Deanna Dane from Starfall. She is deceased at this time in 209 AC, as Aegg told Dunk. All right, so I'm not talking about the Targaryen sigil. I'm actually talking about the meme as it relates to this show. We're now on the 3rd Throne show since 2011, and I reference the meme because I think A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is unlike Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. What I mean by that is I think that this story will test the Thrones casual. For the people that want their Game of Thrones story to be plug and play with dragons, large-scale fights, and naked tavern wenches, I'm afraid I've got some bad news for you. Even the wenches left some for the imagination in this episode. Hell, the most flesh we saw in this episode was Dunk's ass. It put on quite the show from offensive and defensive positions. When it comes down to it, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is really all about social classes set in a Westerosi world at a jousting tournament in a singular location over a week or so. If you love the lore, dialogue between the characters, and have the patience to wait for some small-scale fighting, you'll be fine. But if you're expecting something bigger and bigger, then you may be underwhelmed with this one. We're introduced to 2 members of House Fossaway in this episode, just like we are in The Hedge Knight. Sir Steffan is the elder of the 2, the more formidable fighter, and the one that's behaving like a douchebag. He's set to inherit the family seat of Cider Hall, that's also located in the Reach, just northwest of Ashford. Raymond, kind of like Egg in a way in terms of inheritance, is the more level-headed of the 2 that goes on to do some pretty cool things, but that's a different video. Okay, I have 2 bones I want to pick from this episode. And the first is a comment that the Master of Games, Plumber, makes towards Dunk when he says it's his job to ward off landed knights and sellswords from competing. I'm confused why a landed knight would not be allowed to join a tourney. Landed knights are like the mega evolution of what a hedge knight is. They have a keep, land, titles, a household guard, they can take in sworn swords, like Think of the Cleganes or the Conningtons from A Song of Ice and Fire. Hell, even the Fossaways from Cider Hall are landed knights. So you guys tell me, is this an error in the writer's room, or does Lord Ashford have a thing against the lower nobility? The second grievance is more of something I'm just keeping an eye on, and it's Lionel Baratheon. I'm not sure if it was the joke he couldn't land, him flying through the air like he was on a trampoline, or the absurd dancing duel that he did with Dunk, but I wasn't ready for all that. Lionel's nickname is the Laughing Storm, as we hear Raymond say to Dunk when they enter his tent. While I expected Lionel to have more layers to him than just guffawing like an idiot every time someone tells a joke, I wasn't ready for parkour Baratheon. I'm okay with this level of character context. I think it's obviously a good thing, right? The Hedge Knight is like a 80-page novella, so naturally a big character like this, a Baratheon, should have more context to their character, right? And I want that, just so long as it doesn't diminish Lionel's martial prowess. He's one of the greatest knights in the realm, and we all know what duel awaits him further down the timeline. By the time the show ends, I'm sure I'll say that Lionel is just a more balanced version of Robert, right? Someone that can drink and party without sacrificing their waist size. But I wasn't expecting that scene there in the pavilion and him just catapulting through the air. I was laughing when he did it. So again, I hope that they don't turn him into like a version of like Sirio Farrell meets the Red Viper, and they're just bringing that to Sir Lionel's tent here in 209 AC Westeros. All right, so I got a little fun fact here for you guys, and it's actually going to take us back to Lionel's hut. Just make sure you guys keep your shoes on there and you bring the big guy a little present. Okay, so I want to focus on the conversation that Dunk is having with Lionel before like the big party scene. Okay, Lionel brings up Lord Caffrin and says that this guy is struggling to like pay his rent. Even he was able to bring me this little baby dagger, right? You can tell that it's small potatoes to Lionel, but it's the thought that counts. Okay, so fast forward a little over 70 years later to Robert's Rebellion, and we're going to remain right here in Ashford, where we get the Battle of Ashford. We see that Lord Caffrin die in combat while fighting for Robert after he recently changed sides to join the rebels' cause. It wasn't a happy ending for that Lord Caffrin, as he was killed by Samwell Tarly's dad, Lord Randall Tarly, who went on to send Lord Caffrin's head to the Mad King. All right, just some final thoughts here, guys. Overall, I thought this episode was really good. It was a ton of fun to hear the lines straight from the text, as I recently did a reread of The Hedge Knight, and this episode is just bursting at the seams with lines and quotes directly from the text, which is always pretty fun to see come to life on the screen. Another thing that grabbed my attention both times I watched the episode was the music. After the Thrones intro trolling, they took it in a direction that reminded me of just a sad Western, as Dunk journeys over hills and through woods to find a new direction in his life, especially the song playing right before the credits roll. Go back and check that out if you get a moment and let me know what you think. For whatever reason, it just reminded me of like an episode of Deadwood. I thought it was really well done, and I liked the tune and the direction they took the music in after that little funny moment at the beginning. All right, let's talk about Peter Claffey as Dunk. I thought he was tremendous. He looks the part and he plays it well. When you read The Hedge Knight and you're privy to Dunk's inner monologue, you understand that despite his stature and dominance, he's incredibly insecure, especially around people that are his superiors. Remind you, in the story, he's 16 or 17 in the books. Now, obviously, as they do in the shows, they aged him a little bit. He's probably mid-20s, I would guess, but either or, when he's around people that are knights or lords or princes, as we'll come to see, he is just like really in another element. He's like a shark trying to swim on sand. Though he's near 7 feet tall, he's not had the training that Sir Lionel or Sir Stefan has had growing up from their local master at arms there at their big prestigious castles, right? He even remarks on that when speaking to Lionel. He's like the kid you grow up with that's really tall and you just assume that he should be a great basketball player. I do wonder how many lords across the Seven Kingdoms screwed up in their scouting department when they let Dunk leave without signing him to a long-term deal. You gotta have someone with the foresight to recognize the natural talent when it's right there in front of your face. In Pittsburgh, for example, we wonder what if when it comes to drafting Dan Marino. In Westeros, I'm sure there's more than one lord that wishes he would have offered Dunk a permanent spot there at their castle. Because not only does Dunk bring like the size and stature of a great fighter, he is insanely loyal. We know Dunk goes on to do great things, and I think that ultimately this episode did a fine job starting his journey. Well, that's all I got for you guys on this one. Thank you for indulging me. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you down the road.